Get 15% off a set of BrakeMess Select, Select Pro, or Import Direct brake pads and 2 rotors now at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Welcome to the 7220sports.com Kickoff Show, presented by Wild Lotto and Rocky Mountain Shirtworks. Join the University of Wyoming for the 10th Annual Giving Day, October 23rd to 24th, from noon to noon. Every gift counts, no matter the size. Make your impact at uwyo.edu/giving day. That's uwyo.edu/giving day.
Jay, a lot of misfires and inconsistencies again from the quarterback. How long can you continue to stick with him?
I mean, I think you got to stick with him in the fact that I think he gives us a good chance to be successful and a good chance to win. I mean, he's still got he's got to improve. There's no doubt about it. But there's not, I mean, look, we see this from a day-to-day in a practice scenario there. I think he gives us the best chance to win right now. I think he does. And the fact that, I mean, like I said, we lost to two of the teams that we lost to. Probably if you said, okay, we're going to play 10 games, we might sneak a couple in. But, I mean, they were better than us. Those two teams were. Like I said, he's going to be a good quarterback, and we've got work to do, and we've got to be better. I think to say that, hey, we're going to make a change after we lose the two teams there in the Big 12, and I'm not ready to do that yet.
Jay Savell still believes in Evan Svoboda after his third rough outing of the season for the 0-3 Cowboys. I'm your host, Cody Tucker, joined as always by Jared Newland here in studio. The Wyoming Cowboys will take on the North Texas Mean Green at 5 p.m. tonight on ESPN+. Let me guess, you don't have ESPN+. I have a trivia question for you, though, right off the bat here, Jared. Mean Green, how did they get that name? What does it mean?
I'm guessing you know the answer.
I looked it up today. I did a story on it.
It comes from the movie, the Texas State Armadillos, with Kathy Ireland as the kicker. Just guessing.
I love it. That's a great guess. Oh. Actually, there's conflicting reports, but really there's not. So back in the 70s, the SID's wife actually said something to the effect of, "You go, you mean green," or something like that. Mean Joe Green was on the defensive front for North Texas State at the time, and some thought maybe she was talking about just Mean Joe Green, who she later said, "He is the nicest guy in the world. I hate that he even got the moniker of mean." I don't think opposing offensive lines think he's very nice. But really, she just said, "You go, you mean green," and next thing you know, her husband put it out in his next press release. The media took it. They ran with it. In the year 2000, every single team, all 16 of them on campus, are now forever the Mean Green instead of the boring Eagles.
I actually like the Mean Green better because it's the only one out there.
That's right.
How many teams are called the Eagles in the country?
That's right.
I mean, from high school all the way up, there's got to be hundreds.
Yep, no doubt. I love it. At first I'm thinking, that's such a goofy name, but it way better than Eagles. Yeah. Although they do still have an eagle on their helmet. They still have a guy in a bird outfit on the sideline, apparently. But let's get back to the important matters like Evan Svoboda. That was my question I posed, Jared, to Jay Savell after that 31-14 or 34-14 loss, to rival BYU. And I think that score isn't even indicative of how badly outmatched the Cowboys were in this one, including the quarterback who once again missed and missed and missed.
And it's not like Retzloff is any good.
He's really not.
Pokes made him look good.
He was extending plays, though, which is something that we just have not seen out of him. That's one of my biggest complaints.
He missed on a lot of passes.
Lots.
It was kind of like same as Evan, like not even in the neighborhood type stuff. It was like, gosh, just get a stop here and then go get a score. There's a chance. I mean, just that slimmer hope.
Yeah.
And, of course not. The kickoff in the second half ruined that.
Yeah. I would say, to me, one of the biggest turning points, and I wrote about it this week in the Turning Point story I do after every game, they went on an 11-play, 75-yard touchdown drive late in the second quarter, the Wyoming Cowboys did. Evan Svoboda looked really good. 5 of 6, 60 yards. Started that with a beautiful strike to Clay Nanke over the middle for 24. That looked really good, really sharp. Everything was on. He plunges into the end zone from 2 yards out. Defense comes out, does what it needs to do, gets a 3-and-out. Then Wyoming gets the ball back. Bad snap, loss, run up the middle, no gain, incomplete pass, punt. BYU gets the ball back. They kick a field goal. Then, like you said, they come out of halftime. They have a 100-yard kick return, lights out.
And that was the only chance the Pokes had to be in that game, is if they were, because knowing BYU gets the ball, to hold them to 3 points there or to no points, and to come out and hold them again to a 3-and-out, 5-and-out, 7-and-out, just no points.
Yeah, no points.
And get the ball back and go down and score. And what do? They kick it off, and you were told that it was supposed to go to the corner, and instead it went to the hash, which isn't all that much difference, and they still wanted to use the sideline as the 12th defender,
Sure.
of course.
Yep.
But just kick the damn ball out of the end zone. You have no question whatsoever. There was no wind.
Yep.
Tell John to boot it as far as he can, or as high as he can, really, at that point. They can call a fair catch. It's still a 25-yard line.
Right.
The pros are doing it every week, going to the 30-yard line. They're not worried about that extra 5 yards.
Why even take that chance?
Exactly. That's the only chance Wyoming had to be in that game, and they blew it in the first 13 seconds of the second half. Second half.
Can John consistently get it to the end zone? These other kickers that come up here look like it's just second nature.
I believe he can. I think it's what they're telling him to do, and it's a lot of that might be in his head. Like,
Just overthinking it.
for crying out loud, just let me do it. Let me kick it out of the end zone.
Yeah.
Let's don't get cute here.
Yeah. We can't overemphasize how rough of a start this has been for Evan, and by no means are we pinning this whole thing on Evan, but when you look at these numbers, Jared, through 3 weeks, passing yards per game, 102.7. That's 120th in the country. Completion percentage, he's completed 30 of 70 balls, 116th in the country. Passing efficiency, 75.9, 117th in the country, dead last. Passing yards, 308 through 3 games, 128th in the country. Yards per pass attempt, 4.4, 116th in the
And folks,
country.
that's attempt. That means they're not going downfield at all.
Yeah. It's, I think some things that aren't helping him. Clearly, the offensive line has not been great. Also, this is very Dave Christensen-esque. They are getting to the line really quick. They're snapping the ball. Their offensive possessions, when they go 3-and-out, are lasting under a minute. And the defense is on the field the entire game. I believe Wyoming, I have it somewhere in here, I believe they're averaging 26 minutes a game in time of possession. That's really tough if you're not clicking.
And that was dead on in the BYU game. It was 26-38 to 33-22.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to allow that defense to get some rest. And that's because, and it's been for years, Wyoming does not have the depth to keep rotating in, even though this year we all thought the defensive line had some depth to do that. But first game, 2 guys are hurt. So they don't have that depth anymore, so they can't do that. And you have to allow that defense to rest.
Yep.
And going these 3-and-outs under a minute is not getting it done.
That time of possession is skewed as well because they had the 100-yard kick return. They could have easily taken 4, 5, 6, 7 more minutes off the clock. I think BYU was averaging about 4.5 minutes per drive on Saturday night. So that really skews things as well. We asked Jack Walsh, Wyoming starting right guard, after the game, what his belief level is in his quarterback right now.
Yeah, of course, no doubt. He's my quarterback through and through. He's going to be my quarterback until I'm done playing here. And he's a constant competitor, and he's probably being really hard on himself. And, you know, a lot has to do with the O-line. We got to protect better. Everything starts up front, and we have full faith in him. That's for sure. I have no doubt about that.
I mean, what else do you expect him to say? Of course, he's going to stand by his quarterback. Good on him, but the part I loved is that he put it on the offensive line, that it starts up front, and it really does. And these guys have been really bad. 8 sacks through 3 games, not opening holes. The bad snaps have thrown this offense really for a loop in a lot of ways, but they are only averaging 87 yards per game on the ground. It always used to be, Jared, over the last decade, when you looked at the rushing statistics, especially in the Mountain West, Air Force, Wyoming. Now it's Wyoming's near the bottom. And then they're still keeping the tradition of being right at the bottom and passing right next to Air Force, which they are. Air Force's quarterback is the only thing saving Evan Sabota really from being dead last in every single statistical category.
And going back to the opening statement by Coach Savell, of course he's going to defend his quarterback at this time. and he's not going to throw him under the bus and make a knee-jerk reaction change.
Yeah.
Which I still go back to that ASU game after the 2 picks. I still think they should have brought in Jaden Clemens and just flat out said, no matter what happens here, if he takes us down to a touchdown, you're going back in the next series, Evan. I just want you to sit back, relax, take this in from the sideline, and then we'll put you back in. Maybe they should have done that again last week and just give somebody else a rep or two and to give the opposing defense a different look as well.
Yeah. And, Caden Anderson started warming up late. Too late. BYU held onto the ball. He never got on the field. Like, why isn't he playing in the fourth quarter? That game was toast. The score, like I said, is not indicative of how bad it truly was. Svoboda's 14 of 31, 140 yards. That was actually an improvement. 140 yards and a pick. 2 touchdowns, both from Svoboda on the ground. But this is how bad it was, Jared, to put it in perspective. Against BYU, 12 offensive drives. 8 of those were punts. 6 of those were 3-and-outs. There was a turnover on downs and an interception. It doesn't get much worse than that. And then when you look just how bad, I wrote about it this week on 7220sports.com. Go check it out. Just how bad has Wyoming's offense been under first-year coordinator Jay Johnson? Total offense, 201.7 yards per game. That's 132nd out of 133 FBS teams. Scoring 11.3 points per game. That will not get it done today in Denton, I'll tell you that right now. Passing offense, 114.7 per game. Caden Anderson coming in against Arizona State vaulted that up a little bit. The rushing offense, like I said, 87 yards, that's 120th. Sacks allowed, 8, that's 112th. Third down conversion, 16 of 46, that's 99th. Completion percentage, 34 of 77, 131st. Passing yards per completion, 10.1. Time of possession, 26 minutes, that's 118th in the country. Turnovers lost, 5 in 3 games, 109th in the country. It doesn't get much worse than that. I asked John Michael Gillenborg, who did play 8 snaps in this one. He is trying to come back from a high ankle sprain. I did ask the junior simply, flat out, what has gone wrong with this offense?
It's a tough question to answer because, obviously things haven't gone good. So everyone's trying to look for answers. Maybe fans are trying to point fingers, but we know in the building that there's no finger pointing. We all know as individuals, whether you're a starter or backup, we just got to keep working, keep putting in that effort every week, every day, and just keep focusing on, what do we got right now? Who's our opponent this week? What can we do? What's the best thing? What can I do to play my best on Saturday and be best prepared? And for me personally, it's been tough just because of this ankle. I haven't been able to practice. So hopefully this week I can get out there and get some good reps in so I can feel, back in it and prepared for Saturday. And I know that everyone else is going to have the same mentality.
Not having him certainly hasn't helped. We can start right there, but he said, they're all asking that question themselves, but they're not pointing fingers. We are on the outside. All of us are. It's vile out there right now, but they're trying to stay together. Jay Sawvell promises that the locker room's not splintered, but we're treading in really dangerous territory of that happening.
What is still the million-dollar question is what has happened between the transition from Craig to Jay? I mean, he's for the most part, used his playbook on how to run a program.
Yeah.
He put names on the back of the jerseys. That shouldn't matter. Yeah. He's playing music at times. That shouldn't matter. He's in the weight room. That should actually help.
Yeah.
Just getting to know his players. That should actually help. Does it really make these players that much more loose that they're not concentrating and they're not doing what they should be doing?
You sure wouldn't think so.
Yeah, it's just I don't understand what's happened to this program in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
To where an offensive line that has 4 players back from what's regarded one of the top offensive lines in history of the program last year, they're missing Frank Crum. Yes, he's in the NFL. One guy isn't a line.
Yeah. Same coach. Same.
Exactly.
I know the scheme's a little different, and Jay did mention that maybe these running backs, DJ Jones has gotten the lion's share, which is a whole nother conversation in its own. Why aren't you giving the ball to the other guys? DJ has shown so far that, he's not breaking tackles, he's not hitting holes. Jay even mentioned that sometimes the blocks are absolutely there. The running backs aren't trusting him, and when he says the running backs, it's DJ Jones. He's the only one carrying the ball. He's not trusting it. He's bouncing it outside, and he's running right into tackles because he's not trusting which way. And maybe that's because he played safety last year at North Carolina, and he hasn't played running back in a long time, and this is still new, and this is a new scheme and the whole shebang. I don't know. But I tell you, like, it all starts at that offensive line, and that is it's been shockingly bad all the way from a guy like Tulafona with the snaps. I mean, Evan Svoboda's 6'5", and these snaps are not only going high, they're on a rope. It's been throwing them off. It's been throwing plays off. It's been really ugly all the way around. And
I mean, when you look at the plays too, it almost seems like it's the same 20 plays over and over again. Well, don't you in practice, if that's going to be the case, you run it
Master
again until it's. I mean, look at Air Force. They probably run those same plays 30 times at practice.
Yep.
And maybe you do that with DJ. Just say, if you don't hit this hole, you're running a lap or whatever, whatever it is. Keep hitting the hole no matter what.
Yeah.
The defense in practice isn't going to tackle you. So just keep hitting that hole so it's in your head that you're going to hit that hole.
Yeah.
Just run it 10 times in a row. Then you go to the next play 10 times in a row. Simplify it.
Yeah, people keep asking, what's the identity of this offense? I don't have a clue. I don't know. I mean, if it looks like that 11-play, 75-yard drive, that was a thing of beauty. It really was.
And besides that, the interception by Rook Brown were the only two things of beauty.
Yeah.
And the punt game.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Speaking of Rook Brown, he will miss the first half tonight after a targeting call in the second half against BYU. He laid that dude out. And I don't think it was malicious by a long shot, but his shoulder pad got him in the helmet and he was diving. It looked really bad.
Well, the thing with Rook, he's going 100 miles an hour every single play.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
He's a nice
he and
player.
Wyatt Eckler, they're the same type of guy, really.
Yeah.
They're going to give it their all, and it's just sad that it has to come to that where he's going to miss a first half where he's needed
badly
in that defensive backfield.
And he's a Texas guy, so he's not happy about this. I know Jay Sawvell was not happy after the game. They did make an appeal to the NCAA. It fell on deaf ears. Like we knew it would. Rook will definitely miss the first half of this one. More injury news, DeWyan McNeely. The cat just cannot catch a break. It doesn't sound good. Of course, he dislocated his thumb last week against Idaho on his lone carry. Suffers a knee injury on his lone carry against BYU. That didn't look good at all. He had the torn ACL last year, missed the whole year. He's had nerve damage in his hand. He's had concussion issues.
It was the nicest run of the night besides a couple of Evans, too.
It was, yeah. And I just interviewed DeWyan last week. He wanted nothing to do with talking about injuries. He had put it in his rear view. He said the dislocated thumb was fine. He was going to be just fine. He could grip the football. And then this happens, and he even told me, too, Jared, that he's coming back next year. He said, I've already got it planned out. I'm going to be back, because technically he's a senior, but he does have one more year. And it looks, I hate to speculate, but it doesn't sound like we're going to be seeing DeWyan McNeely possibly the rest of the year.
Sad career for that guy, because he showed so much promise a couple of years ago at Hawaii when he broke that one and really won the game for Wyoming.
Yes, he did.
And it was like, man, Wyoming has a very strong running back room.
Yeah.
And then I said it again at the beginning of this year. It's probably the deepest position. Now it's like cut thin as can be.
Yeah. And it sounds like Harrison Whaley, there's no imminent return for him. And now you got to start openly questioning, does he just pack it up? If he's going to miss half the season and Wyoming is, let's say, 0-6, what do you do? And does he come back? He still has 1 year of eligibility. Does he even come back?
Well, when he's still wearing a brace on the sideline 3 weeks in, and they thought maybe he'd be back at Air Force at the earliest or after the bye week at the latest, it's not looking good for him.
No. We did find out, we heard Jay Sawvell in the offseason say, we are going to identify our top 10 offensive players. Those guys are going to be on the field. Those guys are going to get the ball in their hands. We found out who number 1 and number 2 are. We don't know which order, but I would assume it's Harrison Whaley, then John Michael Gillenborg. Those guys have played a combined 8 snaps this season, and that, of course, was J. Mike last week, who was a non-factor in that game, hoping to at least double what he did at North Texas. He said he didn't suffer a setback. That was the plan all along. Wyatt Eckler, a guy you mentioned, senior safety, he has a broken thumb now. So he will be getting a pin in that thumb, according to Savell, during the bye week. He is going to play, I assume, with a club for the next couple of weeks. Not ideal. Devon Harris still coming back from an elbow injury. They don't really know when he's going to be back. Nate Geiger, think he's out for the year, starting left tackle at the beginning of the year. Redshirt freshman, sounds like he's probably on the shelf too for quite a while. So not good. Not ideal for this team. I mean, it's raining and pouring right now in about every way you can, in any way you can cut it. But
this reminds me so much of Vic Koning's first year when he had all those injuries, and it started out at A&M.
Yeah.
And then also one of Tiller's years, and it might have been his first year. I want to say there was 27 surgeries throughout the year, and a lot of those injuries happened during, back then it was two-a-days, and they were doing the Oklahoma drill. Guy after guy just was going down. It was like, Joe, you might want to reconsider doing this drill.
Well, and you would know best. Didn't Paul Roach take it easy on Ryan Yarborough and be like, you don't need to practice during the spring, or
Well, it was Tiller.
So did they do the same thing with Marcus Harris?
I wasn't here for Marcus's senior year, so I don't know. But Ryan, to my knowledge, was the first guy who had the NFL insurance policy. And he very limited during the spring and during two-a-days.
Yeah. Well, looking down this, we'll put a bow here on BYU here before the break. BYU was only 2 of 11 on third down. Wyoming's been phenomenal on third down.
The last two games, that means it's 3 of 22.
Yeah, unbelievable.
But they are giving up fourth downs though.
5
Once
of 5.
again, yeah, five of the last 5, and it's. That's something that Wyoming has to do better, because they could get off the field if they would do better on fourth down, and that's something that we'll get into it on the other side of the break here. North Texas has not been good at is third down. Yeah,
the only thing their offense hasn't been good at. Chase Roberts killed Wyoming. Keone Parks had a real rough game Saturday night. That's a tough assignment to put a rookie on a kid like this Chase Roberts. I mean, he finished with 6 receptions, 129 yards. He was completely outmatched. He was wide open in the middle of the field. He was a real safety valve for Jake Retzlaff. Retzlaff led them in rushing, 62 yards, 6 carries, but throwing the ball 22 of 36, 291 yards and 3 touchdowns. And, of course, he did have that pick that you mentioned from Rook Brown. Jay Savell said it, you have to win. You have to win the turnover battle. The Cowboys didn't do that. They had to play damn near perfect to win that game. They didn't even come close to that. I guess if you want to point to another good area, 4 penalties for 48 yards, which is more that would have still made Craig Bull pull his hair out the little bit he had left. BYU, 9 penalties, 80 yards. So maybe it's trending in the right direction that Wyoming's cleaning up the stupid mistakes. But other than that, another outing where you leave going, where are the bright spots?
And another great atmosphere.
Yeah.
Another great weather evening.
Yep.
I mean, it was set up for fun. It was no fun at all.
Too much blue in the crowd again.
It reminded me of the Oregon game.
A little bit.
I mean, I don't want to go as far as Texas and Nebraska, but it reminded me a lot of Oregon. Because they were spread out.
Yeah.
It wasn't just in that one section. They were spread out. I had a family sitting behind me, and I was so happy they were knowledgeable about football, because I was gonna. But they were all over Retzlaff too. They were like, "Man, he's got to make that throw." And I turned around and I was like, "I hope these two don't get together, because neither one are playing good. That's for sure."
On the other side of the break, we'll break down this North Texas squad. The Cowboys in Mean Green tonight at 5 p.m. in Denton, Texas. That game, to your chagrin, is on ESPN+.
Get 15% off a set of BrakeBest Select Pro, or Import Direct brake pads and 2 rotors now at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
They've got players who do some good things and all that, and I'm sure that they're looking at ways of saying, hey, this is a time to get right against a team that hadn't been completing very many passes. I think that's, I think we have a huge challenge defensively against their offense, and I think what's going to happen is their defense versus our offense is going to be a big telling thing in the game this coming Saturday, is the fact that, like, we need to be able to establish some things, and we need to be able to create some things, and we're going to have to score points. Like, we're not going down there and shutting out North Texas. They're good on offense. That's not happening.
Welcome back to the 7220sports.com kickoff show, presented in part by Wyo Lotto. When the Pokes win, you win too. Learn more at wyolotto.com. How about we bring back the joke from last week? These buy one, get ones are not going well right now for the Wyoming Cowboys, Jared.
And it's a good thing for Wyo Lotto. There's actually a lot of murmuring on social media about it. Like, just give us a chance for the buy one, get ones.
That's very true.
So when they do win Sunday, it's going to be very busy at all these convenience stores.
No doubt. It's a tall task. First of all, let me ask you, I know you're shocked, but how shocked are you? Where did you think the Cowboys would be after 3 weeks? Certainly not 0-3.
No, and I'd said it from the get-go, and now I'm really eating my words that I was fearful of North Texas more than I was ASU and BYU, and let alone Idaho, and now they sit 0-3. So really, I thought 2-1 at the worst, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I keep seeing these people who are like, "Oh, bet you wish you didn't run Craig Bowl off," like he retired,
and he listened to us.
Yeah. But they're like, "Where do you think this team would be if Craig Bowl was still the head coach?" And it's like, well, they would have beat Idaho because they wouldn't have shot themselves in the foot that much. They would have beat Idaho, but I don't know that they were beating Arizona State. That looked really good, and I don't think they were beating BYU.
Yeah, and nobody thought around the country that ASU was as loaded as they are.
Yeah, they're
pretty damn good, and they are fast. They're big, and they're fast.
They're not bad. And speaking of fast, the University of North Texas, the Mean Green, this will be the first ever meeting between the Wyoming Cowboys and North Texas.
Which is kind of hard to believe.
Yeah, it is a little weird. Especially, the Cowboys have always recruited Texas, and especially the Metroplex, and Denton's right there. I don't know if Denton's necessarily considered the Metroplex, but if it's not, it's right on the skirts. So it is kind of weird that they haven't played, but this North Texas team under Eric Morris, they're explosive. They took one on the chin last week, but it was kind of like Wyoming and Arizona State. They tried to get back in that thing because they went down early so quick, and then it just got worse and worse. Pick six, another interception. It just snowballed on them, and it turned into an avalanche. Next thing you know, it was 52-7 at halftime.
So you're saying the Pokes have a chance?
Yes. Yeah, they do if they can run the football. Yeah, that's key.
Yeah, they got to sustain drives and let that defense rest, because this is another team that they're explosive.
Yeah,
they can score kind of at will, to be honest with you.
Yep.
So it could be a shootout or it could be a blowout.
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, it's also going to be nearly 100 degrees today.
Oh, is there humidity?
Little humidity kicking in too. This will be the, they acted like Arizona wasn't a big deal, and for real, we were both there. It wasn't. It was comfortable. This might be a little uncomfortable, especially a 5:00 start.
And even Texas last year, it was a night game, but it was in the low 90s, maybe the high 80s, and it wasn't all that humid, so it was very comfortable last year.
I didn't think it was bad either. Chandler Morris, starting quarterback, started his career at Oklahoma, spent 1 year there, then went 3 years at TCU. Was a 1,500-yard passer last year for the Horned Frogs, obviously helped lead TCU to the national title game a couple of years ago as a backup. But he moves over to North Texas, where his father, Chad Morris, is the passing game coordinator. He's not related to Eric Morris, the head coach. He has 899 passing yards and 9 touchdowns through 3 games. I'm not a mathematician. I don't pretend to be one. I don't even know if Evan Sabota's on pace to hit that in 12 games.
I'm speechless.
But this kid, that just shows, man, they are winging it. Their bubble screens are deadly. They hit a bubble screen against Texas Tech that went for 75 yards. It looked very easy. This kid's really good. He kind of reminds me of, and maybe it's the OU thing, but it kind of reminds me of Baker Mayfield a little bit, aside from the running part. He can extend plays. He's not the best at running the ball downfield, but he definitely can extend plays with his feet. He's very comfortable throwing the ball on the run. His dad's obviously the passing coordinator, knows his strengths and weaknesses, and they are he threw 3 picks last week. He has 6 on the year, so he's a little bit of a gunslinger. But like I said, last week they were just trying to dig themselves out of a hole, and the hole they ended up in China.
Well, and you mentioned earlier, Wyoming's average per attempt is in 4 yards per attempt.
Yeah.
North Texas is 8.43.
Yeah.
So that you can tell that what they're doing with the ball, passing it, and so forth. And like I said right before the break, the only thing that North Texas really hasn't done well on is third down attempts.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. Trying to find, just lost it here. But yeah, I mean, this kid's he's already attempted 113 passes through 3 games. You know what they're going to do. And obviously their pass is setting up the run. Demaja Harris, their running back, 22 carries, 193 yards. That's an average of a whopping 8.8 yards per carry. But good news for Wyoming fans. Mr. Harris will not be playing in this game. He was injured last week in Lubbock. Same with Ragsdale, their third leading rusher with 58 yards and a touchdown. He will also be out, and they've already lost their other running back, Jawan Price, who had a broken leg in the opener. He rushed for 14 times for 64 yards in the opener. They are really, really thin at running back. They did get Zach Evans in. I think he will be their starting quarterback in Denton tonight. Also on the injury front, they lost they lost their starting guard. They also lost a backup center, Damon Ward Jr., their leading wide receiver. Check out these numbers: 15 catches, 281 yards. He's averaging 18.7 a catch, has a long of 54. He has 2 touchdowns. He also left the game in Lubbock with an injury, likely limited this week. Also, Jeremiah Aaron, their 4th leading receiver, 5 catches, 97 yards. He's averaging more than 19 a catch and has a touchdown. He also got banged up against the Red Raiders in that 66-21 loss.
Well, and if you're a North Texas coach too, you know that this isn't a must-win for them by any means because it's not a conference game. Yes, would they like to make a statement out of conference? Of course they would. Yep. But we all know conference is much more important, so maybe Wyoming doesn't see any of these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. It's you hate to ever say, "Oh, good, oh, good."
But you just did.
They're going to be missing some guys. Oh, good.
Well, and they're really good up front too because in 117 pass attempts, they've only given up 5 sacks so far. Yeah. So they're getting the ball out fast.
They do. They get the ball out really fast. The tempo is really high. They're going to be moving really quick. Wyoming's defense has their work cut out for them for sure. I just don't know what to make of this Cowboys defense, Jared. I mean, they had moments against Idaho where they looked good. They got they got BYU off the field a couple times last Saturday night, but still, there's just too many easy passes. They're getting too much of a push at the line. It's just not. It doesn't look like a Wyoming defense yet.
And we do know that it's Aaron's first time of calling defenses, and you have to have a knack for it. Maybe it's time for Jay to say, "Oh, Aaron, I'm going to start calling the defenses because I've been doing it from the field before I became head coach. Why can't I just do it now?"
Yeah.
And maybe learn a little bit more from me, and then maybe take it over in a couple more weeks. But I'm going to do it for this week.
Yeah.
I mean, but you don't see him taking that leadership role really and saying, "I'm going to do this."
I just wonder if he's worried about that being a confidence killer like he is. I mean, let's be real. If he pulls Evan Svoboda and puts in Caden Anderson, Evans, I don't want to say he's done and headed to the glue factory, but it's a step in the wrong direction, especially mentally, which is such a huge part of this game. And I wonder if he would do the same with, overstepping Aaron. I mean, I guess last year we saw Deion Sanders do that with Sean Lewis really early in the year, and Sean Lewis is now the head coach at San Diego State. But Deion Sanders isn't afraid to step on anybody's toes or end anybody's career prematurely. And he flat out said, "Sean, take a seat. I'm bringing in a new play caller," like week 4.
But Sean, like I said, Sean landed on his toes just fine. He's a head coach now.
Yeah.
Now are they all that good on offense? No,
not yet. Not yet.
But at the same time, I mean, but it's also your job on the line too. You have to think about your future as the head coach. And are they going to pull the trigger after 1 year? Most likely not. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you have to be able to make these decisions and make very tough decisions.
Yeah.
And whether it's Jay on offense, Johnson that is, or if it's Aaron Bowl on defense, you have to make these decisions.
Yep. Once again, though, they're not getting to the quarterback, which is doing no favors for that young secondary. And by young secondary, I mean Keone Parks and Ian Bell and guys like that. Keone Parks was hung out to dry so badly last week. He was beat so badly by Chase Roberts. Savell said in the postgame, we had a defensive back that we had a corner that did not play well at all tonight, and it was clear who he was talking about. So those guys, we knew there was going to be some learning curves and some growing up and some speed bumps, but Chase Roberts definitely definitely highlighted the issues they have back there. And now you're dealing with Wyatt Eckler, who has one hand. You're dealing with Rook Brown. This couldn't be a worse game. There couldn't be a worse game right now for Rook Brown to be missing a half of. And we talked about it on the phone. Is that Malik Singleton who steps in? Is it Andrew Johnson, who already started a game this year for an injured Isaac White? Who is it? Who steps in there? Is it another corner who steps in there? I mean, they're really thin at that position, really inexperienced. So they're going to miss Rook Brown a lot, and they better hope that this game is in reach at halftime for Rook coming out in the second half.
It's probably going to be by committee.
Yep.
And with the quarterback getting the ball out so fast, you really can't take a chance on blitzing too much in a game like this. So there's going to be a lot of soft coverages, zone coverages most likely.
Yeah.
And you just have to hope that he's off the mark or there's some batted balls at the line and to get them off the field, because that's what happens in zone defense. You saw it earlier this week on Monday Night Football. That prevent defense lost the game.
Yep, absolutely. Like it often does.
Ooh.
I posed the question to Jay Savell, like, hey, their pass defense, North Texas's, they're ranked 131st in the country. Is this a get-right game? And he, to his credit, he goes, yeah, they're probably looking at us going, Wyoming has the worst offense in football of anybody not named Kent State, so maybe they're thinking they're going to get right against Wyoming.
Well, something has to give. We know that.
Yeah, but I mean, they have three wide receivers that are already over 100 yards, and one of them over 200, nearly three. Aaron and Jeremiah Aaron, he's already at 97 yards. I mean, that's four guys that are at 100 yards. That's a tough road to hoe here for sure.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, remember those days? Remember what those were like?
30 years ago, yes.
Well, people keep comparing this start for Jay Savell to Vic Koenig. Vic Koenig had Casey Bramlett and Malcolm Floyd and
Ryan McGuffey.
Yep. And, I think if you put a finger now in hindsight, when you look back at those teams that won 5 games in 3 years, the lines were really their bugaboo. They had skill guys, and Casey and them, they got in shootouts. They just couldn't stop anybody, and they couldn't do it, and they didn't have a running game, which Wyoming also doesn't have as of yet. DATCU Stadium, 31,000 seats. As of earlier this week, they had 23,000 seats sold. They want to, they're really pushing for a sellout down here in Denton. I don't know if they're going to get there, but
and that gross green out too.
Yeah. And apparently, Peterbilt, their headquarters is in Denton, Texas, so they got a bunch of tickets for their employees, and it's like an appreciation thing. And same with DATCU, which is a local credit union. They're also having one of their big bashes. So, and this is a good team. It's a really good team, and they've played really well so far. They did take one on the chin last week. Kind of to be expected in a way, though. Texas Tech really struggled the week before they went into overtime at home against Abilene Christian. But so far, they went on the road and put up 52 on South Alabama. They came home and beat Stephen F. Austin, put up 35. And then they go down to Texas Tech and get absolutely smacked 66-21. So, but in that first game, Morris threw for 415 yards. Second game, 322. I mean, this kid is a gunslinger, and he might have some openings tonight. So it's going to be really imperative that the Cowboys keep this close. They are not a team that can fall behind. Jay Savell mentioned they're not even a team that can be behind the chains, let alone behind on the scoreboard. So it's going to be a hot, muggy night. This is huge. This is huge for the Cowboys. They have got to start feeling good. And, we can look ahead a little bit, too. They lose this game. Right now the rallying cry is, hey, we're not even in conference play yet. That doesn't work for everybody. I mean, hopefully they believe it, because nobody on the outside is convinced. So Air Force coming to town for homecoming next week. Air Force is clearly down. If you're ever going to beat an Air Force team, that's it. And then they get a bye week, which they need so badly. Then San Diego State comes to town, a team that is really struggling to score the football. This is a chance for not only to win a game and win a game on the road against a really good opponent like North Texas. This is a chance to go on a little run here and start feeling really good about yourself.
And get back to 500.
Get back to
3-3 after that, if it could happen.
Yeah, big if. Let's run down some of the games today. Jared.
Yeah, in the Mountain West, earlier today, Utah State kicked it off with Temple. When would you ever think that the total in a Utah State Temple game be 53.5?
No, seems very high.
Eastern Washington at Nevada, UTEP at Colorado State, Fresno State at New Mexico. That total's 60.5, which I could see that going because New Mexico's actually playing. They're 0-3, but they're playing some good football.
Yeah, they're scoring.
They're just not finishing games.
Yep.
Portland State at Boise State, and then later tonight, be midnight Eastern time. That is, or 9:15 or 11:59. They always say. They don't ever say midnight. Northern Iowa at Hawaii out there on the island.
Yikes.
Some top 25 games. There's actually quite a few this weekend. Matchups, USC at Michigan was earlier today. It's actually still going on as we speak. And then last night there was a top 25 matchup with Illinois and Nebraska. Utah at Oklahoma State. When would you think? Big 12 matchup. Number 14 Utah, or number 12 Utah, that is, at number 14 Oklahoma State.
Go Pokes.
And that's still going on as we speak. Another in-conference game, Tennessee at Oklahoma. So weird to say that.
Weird. How about Tennessee? 71-0 last week. They're the highest scoring team in college football. They look really good.
And they announced this week they're imposing a new seat tax for season tickets next year to help pay the players.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
No, not at all.
I think it's a fantastic idea. I'm actually kind of pissed at myself that I never thought of that.
Oh, I bet you it's out there in damn near every single athletics department. They just didn't want, I guess, be the first one to say it and take that bad news. Shoot, Tennessee's been paying players for years.
Would you pay an extra $20 on your season tickets to know it was going toward NIL?
Yeah, and even if it's $1 per ticket, especially in a 100,000 seat stadium, that obviously makes a lot of money. But in Wyoming's 26,000 seat stadium, $1 doesn't make up a lot, but maybe it's $2.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, if it's $1,000 per game, or $1 per ticket per game, I mean, you got to start somewhere. I don't hate it at all. I think it's a brilliant idea. I wanted to get your thoughts on. I didn't get to see a lot of it. I watched the highlights, of course, but it's always been one of my favorite holidays is watching CU beat CSU every year. And I don't like CU. I have no love for them whatsoever. However, I do want them to beat CSU. They beat the Rams down. It wasn't even close.
Well, and after the game, Shador and Nicolosi, they were going to shake hands, and he goes, "Oh, you talking now? What are you going to say now?" And it was he and Torrey Horton that actually were doing the smack talking before the game, and then Torrey Horton, they didn't even know if he was going to play before the game. And even in the post-game press conference, Dion goes, "Oh, what are they saying now? That number 14. How many balls did he catch anyway?"
Yeah. I did hear though from the CSU brass that those interviews took place in the off season, and they weren't. It wasn't like it was last week, but they just got posted this week.
Why post them then? You edit those out and say, you know what? Let's do new ones. Do you want to say something different?
Right. Or put it out then, because then it's just fun. Because we heard the same from Jack Howell at Mountain West Media Days. CSU safety said, "I have a lot of respect for Wyoming. When I came here, I hated Wyoming, but now that Dion's at CU, that's real hate. And I have a healthy respect for Wyoming, but I hate Colorado." And he was telling everybody within earshot how much he hates Colorado. So, you know what? They got whipped. And they hadn't played in Fort Collins since like 1996. And that was a packed house. They were in there early. It was loud. It was a hell of an atmosphere. And Colorado just punched them right in the face.
But like normal, they were all gone after halftime.
They had nothing to cheer about. Nothing whatsoever. Latest, before we get into our predictions, let's do a quick little, what's the latest on this realignment stuff? It sounds like Air Force is flirting with the AAC, possibly joining the other academies. Army and Navy, I don't know why they would do that. The buyout fee is huge, plus they play them every year anyway, and I always thought Air Force thumbed their nose up at those schools and didn't want to be in the same conference anyway.
But is it for just football? Are they really going to take all their other sports?
And what does Army and Navy play in, the Patriot League or something in all the other sports?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that would work, and does Air Force other teams, does the Mountain West let them stay? Hope not. If that's the case,
yeah.
Do they go to the WAC? Maybe. Do they go to the Big West? Maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, and I love how people, UNLV, taking nothing away from them, they're right at the top 25 right now. They have had 2 really impressive road wins over Big 12 teams. They weren't invited to the Pac-12 in the first place for a reason. Does it really matter if they keep winning right now? None of that money's going to the Pac-12, and it's going to be, that's a once-in-a-lifetime thing for a team like UNLV to go to a college football playoff. And Barry Odom probably already has one foot out the door. He is going to be sought after this offseason.
He's had a taste of the big time, and he's about ready. He wants to go back.
Yep, and he will.
That paycheck is nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
You also read reports that UNLV is tied with Nevada. That is the furthest from the truth.
I read that too.
Yes, they are tied together, but those teams have competed in different leagues before. And if UNLV gets the invite and Nevada doesn't, they're going.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. They're still going to play each other.
Well, and Nevada wants a big-time team, especially right there in that hub where the Raiders are right there and the Golden Knights, and they're about to have an MLB baseball team. I mean, imagine them throwing in a power, which we don't even know if Pac-12 is going to be a power conference. It's likely not.
And if you read all the reports on that, they're absolutely not going to get a better TV deal than what the Mountain West currently has. Now that they're depleted, that those rights are going to go down a little bit. We all know that.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be better, and they're not going to be an automatic qualifier.
No.
And we said it last week in our emergency podcast. It's a lateral move for these teams at this point.
Well, and the rich are trying to get richer right now, and they're starting to talk about subdivisions. And if you want to be with the big dogs and the extra 28 teams, 22 teams, whatever it's going to be, you got to pay big money every year. You got to have that money. And they're going to find out real quick. There's a reason Oregon State and Washington State were left for dead too, because they're not in big media markets, and they were the little brother in the Pac-12.
I think they should go to regulation, and like the Premier Soccer League does over in Europe.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
I mean, for like 16 teams or 14 teams. Now, I don't think you could do it based on every year type of a deal. Because
maybe sustain it for 5.
Because there's home and homes that are scheduled and things like that. And I mean, you could have one bad game against somebody, and then you lost that game. You're relegated back down to the has-beens.
Yeah.
So it probably at least has to be every 2 years.
Yeah. Be interesting as the college football world turns. We have about 30 seconds here, Jared. What are you thinking tonight?
Oh my gosh, I've been so wrong this year. I'm gonna say that the Pokes get off the schneid. They score some points, over 30 today, and the defense holds. They win by 4, 31-27. Go Pokes.
My glass is getting half empty, Jared. I actually picked North Texas. I think that it's not going to be a blowout, I hope.
Sellout.
But this is weird, man. We talked about it before we came on the air. This could be one where Wyoming could win, or it could be a nail-biter, or it could be an absolute beating. That offense is pretty good, and they're scary. And right now, Wyoming just hasn't given me any reason. They haven't given me any reason to believe. Give me a reason to believe.
And folks, don't put any money on this.
No, please, God,
this is all for fun for me.
Yes, yeah. No, last week I would have picked BYU, but I don't pick BYU on principle. This has been the 7220sports.com Kickoff Show presented by Wild Lotto and Rocky Mountain Shirtworks. Thank you for joining us. For Jared Newland, I'm Cody Tucker. Stay tuned for Wyoming football next, right here on KOWB.
Imagínate escuchar tu canción favorita como si fuera la primera vez. Te presentamos el totalmente nuevo y reimaginado Nissan Kicks con sonido Bose Personal Plus y bocinas en la parte superior de los asientos para crear una experiencia 360. Jamás has escuchado algo así. Reimagina tu música y tu forma de manejar. Descubre el totalmente nuevo y reimaginado Nissan Kicks en nissanusa.com. Función disponible. Bose es una marca registrada de The Bose Corporation.